The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, CaneSport, and good morning to you all. It is Izubee Charles, joined by Stephen Wagner, and welcome to another episode of Good Morning CaneSport. It is Friday, January 31st, and we'd like to thank everyone for starting your day off with us. So let's get right into this Miami Hurricanes news. First up on this site this morning, we take a closer look at the Miami Hurricanes offense in 2025. It has a few changes at some certain positions, but we're excited to see what those guys can do under Shannon Dawson in year 3. Obviously, they added Carson Beck in the fold after he transferred in from Georgia. So going to be some exciting times for the Hurricanes. In an article this morning, we take a look at which position groups or all the position groups on the offense side of the ball and give them a grade. Steven, a lot of guys returning up front, but in the skill positions, a lot of new pieces looking to step up. So, Steven, what are your thoughts on, which position group do you think is going to be the best for the Hurricanes on the offense side of the ball in 2025?
So, I definitely think that the offensive line is going to be the strength and the identity of this team. Bringing back Francis Malagoa, you got Inez Cooper on the inside, and then it looks like they're going to be better at center with Brockermeyer coming in to replace Zach Carpenter. I'm very, very confident in that offensive line. And I don't really think that's much of a question. But what I'm kind of keeping an eye on and what I am really, really interested in is going to be receiver. Jojo Trader, it looks like he's kind of, ready to break out. He's ready to step up, kind of be, one of those dudes from Miami. I'm really interested to see how Nye Carr is able to go ahead and contribute. Chance Robinson, the other member of that 2024 class, he's been sort of hampered by injuries. That's kind of impeded his progress a little bit. But I'm sure that, we'll see something from him at some point. Malachi Toney, I've been hearing that I've been hearing enough to make me really think that Malachi could have a very serious opportunity to play right away as a freshman at Miami. The staff thinks that highly of him. He's looked good in workouts. I've only heard positive things about Malachi Toney. They really, really like Dalen Upshaw too. The staff just thinks they have a great young group of receivers. They think that they've completely changed the way the receiver room is built since they've arrived here, and I fully do agree. Whenever they first got, whenever Mario Cristobal and the staff first got here, let's be real. Xavier Restrepo was. It was basically Xavier Restrepo and then some other guys. And Restrepo, was having trouble staying healthy. Now it looks like Miami is finally to the point where they have legitimate options and legitimate depth at receiver. They don't have to be overly reliant on, one or two targets. I really think that, receiver is going to be kind of a breakout position to keep an eye on. Although, like I said, the heart and soul of this team is going to be the offensive line. I think the team overall will go as the O-line goes, but keep an eye on receiver.
Yeah, I agree with you when kind of calling the strength of the offensive line, but I'm going to say the guys running behind them, the running backs, I'm super, super excited to see what Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lau could do in year 2. Obviously, we saw Mark bounce back, from that injury he suffered towards the tail end of his freshman year behind Damian Martinez. But hey, this year he's going to be junior. He's going to be that feature back for the Canes. And like you mentioned, a really, really good offensive line that returns 4 starters from last year and brings in a veteran starter, Brockmeyer from TCU. And then you got to mention Jordan Lau. Obviously, took the most of all of his opportunities last year. I think rushed for almost 400 or just under 400 yards last year. So that's another 1-2 punch that I'm excited to see. And like you mentioned, those wide receivers, a lot of unknown in that room right now, but I do think with a veteran quarterback like Carson Beck, I think, Miami can find the rhythm that, we saw last year. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be the number one offense in the country, as dynamic as it was with guys like Cam Ward, Elijah Roy, Xavier Shepard, so on and so forth. But hey, I do think the Canes offense is going to look really good. You bring in a guy with a lot of experience like Carson Beck leading those guys, and even the tight ends, Elijah Lofton, I think is going to have a huge year. So I do think Coach Shannon Dawson has, a lot of weapons to play with. Obviously, not as proven as the guys that they had last year. And, we're seeing them do their thing at the Reese's Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine Bowl as well. But I do have a lot of faith in this offense in 2025. So let us know in the comments or on the message boards, which position group do you think is going to be the most of the best for the Hurricanes in 2025 on that offense? So make sure to let us know. And then we're going to jump to the opposite side of the ball on the defensive side of things. We continue our 30 for 30, counting down Miami's top 30 players with 30 reps or more. And we're at number 11 today, Wesley Besant. He's going to be a senior, which is crazy to think. Time is flying. Wesley's, had some good moments in his Miami Hurricanes career, but a lot of people do think he can take his game to another level. I'm one of those people that think that. Coming in with Coach Corey Heatherman, who's really a linebacker-focused coach, I think this would be the best opportunity for him. Obviously, we know it's not easy to play under 3 defensive coordinators in your stint at Miami, but hey, Wesley's making the best of the time that he has in the Hurricanes. I do think his senior year is going to be his best year. Steven, just what are your thoughts on Wesley Besaitha? Do you think he can take his game to another level?
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely can. Whenever you look at him and kind of, like the way his body is, he absolutely has the measurables. He's long, he's built, he moves well sideline to sideline. He has that speed. It's just always been kind of one of these deals where, there's, and, as someone who's not a talent evaluator, someone who's not a scout and someone who doesn't have a say in On3's rankings, there's something that's just, it's always been a tad off with him. You have moments where you really do see the side of him that was a consensus 4-star prospect and a dude that a lot of people thought was going to be a really good college football player. But then you also have moments where he just looks completely out of position, completely undisciplined, and you kind of wonder, man, what the hell is this defense doing? I think that this year, the new a new structure coming in, hopefully being better along the defensive line, being good in the front seven. Overall, I think that should give the Saints a few more opportunities, especially with the defensive line continuing to improve. I think that probably means that there's going to be less burden on the linebackers to consistently make plays. But, something that, I kind of keep coming back to is, so far, Wesley's really the only guy that Mario, or the only linebacker that Mario has recruited and signed from a high school class that we've, consistently seen major production from on the field. So, yeah, I'm really interested to see, where Wesley Besaitha goes, but I'm really curious to see who else is going to step up. Or is Miami going to have to continue just leaning on the transfer portal if they continue having developmental issues at linebacker? I mean, at this point, Mario has had 3 full recruiting classes, and then obviously that 2022 cycle that he kind of just had to piece together at the end. He's had transfer portal opportunities. When are we going to get to the point where we can really look at Miami's linebacker unit and say, oh yeah, that's a very solid group. I have full faith in them. I no longer consider linebacker a liability.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what he can do, because obviously his freshman year, he wasn't, the main guy. And, these last 2 years, he's kind of been, in the shadow of Francis Marino as that leader of the linebacker group. Now, I think it's clear as day Wesley Besaitha is going to be that guy in that linebacker room. Really interesting to see how he takes that role. So make sure to check out that article on Wesley Besaitha as we count down the top 30 Hurricanes with 30 reps or more, as we talk about number 11, Wesley Besaitha. And we're going to move on to some recruiting talk. Yesterday, On3 released its final rankings for the 2025 class, and Miami has a 5-star with Hayden Lowe cracking that top 32. Steven, you've covered Hayden Lowe a very, very, very long time, ever since he committed to the Canes. Had the chance to watch him in San Antonio, which really, really helped his stock and solidified him as a 5-star. So, Steven, just what are your thoughts on, Hayden Lowe, getting that 5-star, anointment, as you could say, and, being regarded as one of the best recruits in the class?
He does undoubtedly have one of the highest ceilings in this cycle. If he clicks the way that a lot of people think he can click in college, he is going to be a first-round draft pick. If he reaches his true potential, that is absolutely what he can become. Now, he's not necessarily, like a Chase Young type of guy. I think he's a little bit longer, a little lankier than Chase Young, but I absolutely do believe that he has a ton of potential. But as I've continued to say, over the past couple of months, even whenever he flipped to Miami, this is going to be a litmus test for Jason Taylor. How good of a developmental coach are you really? And what can you do whenever you have talent that everyone kind of agrees is, really, really high upside talent, but maybe still a little bit raw and needs a little bit of development? I don't know if he's going to be a dude that, is necessarily ready to play right away. I don't know if he's good to go, right this second. I think that he would be one of those guys who could kind of, benefit from having, maybe a year of development. But I do think that eventually he is going to get to the point where he will have that star potential. Now, of course, what he actually does on the field, how well or how successful he actually ends up being once he steps on the football field. I mean, that really is going to be up to this Miami defensive line staff, because so far, I mean, let's be honest, there have been some offensive players that Miami has put forward, and I think everyone has agreed, the development on the offensive side has kind of been there, but we haven't really seen the defense take those steps that I think we were really expecting them to see. Is Hayden Lowe going to be one of these guys that they're able to coach to the level that I think a lot of people are going to be expecting him to be coached to? Or is this going to be one of these issues where, you have all of the recruiting in the world, but maybe your talent is what ends up falling your development is maybe what ends up falling short?
Yeah, a ton of young talent in that defensive line room. And, like I mentioned, Hayden Lowe being a 5-star. Second year in a row, the Canes land a 5-star edge, obviously, in the 2024 cycle, Marquise Lightfoot. And then you can throw Justin Scott in the mix, obviously plays in the interior, but a lot of talent in that D-line from Jason Taylor. And I really do think, hey, this is the year you got to put up or shut up, honestly, because like you mentioned, Miami's been, bringing a ton of productive high school players that, have all the stars and have all the rankings. But hey, once you get to college, you can throw all that out the window. Now it's time for production to see if you can take these guys' game to the next level. And I think we're going to, have a real better vision of where that stands. And, I agree with you on the offensive side of the ball. You see guys really progressing and kind of showing that, hey, these guys have potential to be a star. Elijah Lofton, Jordan Lyle, JoJo Trader. We saw that a little bit with O.J. Frederick, but not too many other guys on the defensive side of the ball. You kind of get that, hey, this guy has star written all over him. So going to be interesting to see if the defensive line can kind of start, churning out guys like that. Obviously, Ruben Bain, but from the 2024 and 2025 class, going to be watching that group real close. So make sure to check out what Steven wrote on the 2025 class. And Steven, just want to, as we wrap up this 2025 class, or almost wrap up the 2025 class, because we have somebody that just reclassified that's some pretty big no's. Before we move on to that, just want to get your final thoughts on, that group as a whole. Luke Nickel cracked the top 100. I believe he's number 99 in the On 300 rankings. And, a couple guys moved up, a couple guys dropped down. Just what are your closing thoughts on this 2025 class?
Yeah, this really does end up being, a pretty solid class. Obviously, Hayden Lowe being the big riser, I think he ended up climbing a little bit more than 250 spots. That to me puts Miami, or that to me, kind of shifts the way that we view Miami's 2025 class. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we were saying, well, Miami has, one guy, I guess it was, I think 3 guys who are in the top 100. And that was Kellen Wiley, the linebacker from Armwood, then Joshua Moore from West Broward, and then we had Luke Nickel as well. But now with Hayden Lowe making the jump and it truly giving Miami a legitimate 5-star. And keep in mind, he's not just an on-3 outlier. There are other sites that are very, very high on him as well. I think that kind of shifts the way that we look at this. Shout out to Miami for their talent evaluation, because, clearly a lot of scouts in the rankings industry, really do agree with it. But we were all kind of, concerned and kind of wondering, just how good can this class end up being? They're not landing any 5-stars, and the 5-stars that they were after, they were whiffing on. They ended up whiffing on DJ Pickett. He was kind of the guy that they circled as a must get. They whiffed on Ben Hanks. That was another dude that they were really, really hell bent on keeping home. Miami just but now that Hayden Lowe is coming to Miami, you can say we have that 5-star. Miami got, the requisite talent that they needed to get. They finished with another top 15 class. Heck, they might have, I didn't check the ranking. I didn't think to, but they might have had the opportunity to jump into the top 10. Hang on a second. Let me look here. Where are we at right now? Okay, no, they're still at 13, but I mean, still, this does end up being a very good class. I mean, they are right there overall talent-wise with Notre Dame, with Florida, with Tennessee. Michigan obviously climbed into the top 10, but they're also ahead of USC. They're ahead of Oklahoma. They kicked the crap out of Florida State. They kicked the crap out of Clemson. They did get the guys that they ultimately needed to get. I mean, they are putting together their best roster in the ACC. And this year, going into this season, I think they roster in the ACC again.
Yeah, I agree with you. And this is going to be the third straight year that Miami finishes with the top class in the ACC. The talent is there. Now all the Hurricanes have to do is piece it together. Obviously, we saw major steps from year 2 to year 3 with the Canes winning, 10 games for the first time since 2017. Now, like I said, you got a good quarterback, Carson Beck, coming over from the SEC. You got the offensive line, you got the running backs. Only real question mark is the wide receivers, but you bring in a guy like CJ Daniels, who's proven he can be a number one wide receiver, and young guys flashing like JoJo Trader. So hey, the talent's there now. Hurricanes all have to put it together, but want to talk about another 2025 prospect, like I alluded to a little bit before, a reclassification, and that is Miami Northwestern 4-star cornerback Javari Flowers, who I wrote on the message board yesterday. Hey, Miami can land this guy. This would be the cherry on top of that class. He had a great showing in the Under Armour All-American game. This was the first year that 2026 prospects could participate in it. Usually it's held for the seniors, but he was one of the best juniors and best overall players at that camp. And he decided to make the decision to reclassify and join the 2025 class. Got to be one of the most sought after 2025 prospects left. I think he might be the only 4-star left. I may be wrong, or there's a few 4-star guys left, but 4-star Miami is going to be chasing. So, Steven, with Javari Flowers making that move to the 2025 classes, what are your thoughts on, that move? How big of an impact does it, mean for Miami? Just where do things stand with that?
Yeah, it definitely does have some impact on the way that we could look at Miami's class. Straight up, Miami views him as an elite kick returner and punt returner. He's a dude in Miami's backyard at a school that's been a traditional pipeline to Miami, over at Miami Northwestern, played against the best of the best competition last year, dominated the best of the best competition last year, checked pretty much all of the boxes that you kind of want to check. Miami absolutely will be in the mix, but right now, Javari and his father, they are really trying to shop around and, make sure that they, very, very thoroughly exhibit every single option, or examine every single option. Florida is going to be a school to watch. Georgia is going to be a school to watch. He's getting to Georgia this weekend. I wouldn't be stunned if Syracuse makes a run as well, because Fran Brown has very quietly kind of kept his team as a dark horse for Javari Flowers. Javari's had the opportunity to get up to Syracuse. Syracuse has been on him for a while. That could be kind of a team to keep an eye on. I do think that, if Javari really, really wanted to be at Miami, he absolutely could be at Miami by now. But the fact that he is reclassifying and he's doing it so late, it puts him and the family on an extremely, extremely accelerated clock. Now they're having to rush through the entire process that they normally would have gone through last summer. They're having to do that on Saturday and then in March, because he's planning on committing at some point during the last week of March. The latest that he can sign and be a member of the 2025 class, I believe, is April 1st. So basically that gives him this week and then March to be able to figure out where he wants to go, because February is a dead period. Like I said, the clock's ticking for Javari. I do think that he is good enough to get to Miami and play this year as a member of the 25 class. I absolutely do believe that he could be Miami's kick returner and punt returner, and they do value Javari very, very much. Make absolutely no mistake about that. He is valued at Miami. He's a dude that they would rather have than not have. But again, like I said, being on an accelerated clock definitely changes quite a few things.
Yeah, and I kind of want to mention, first off, the kick returner thing. I think this kid, since I've came down here, he's probably been the best kick and punt returner I've ever seen. He's making plays. He slips, on one kick return, takes it back. He's taking punts, almost every game, giving the guy jet sweeps. And, a few weeks ago, we talked about, his kick return ability. And obviously, I'm not calling him Devin Hester, but this kid makes plays like Devin Hester in that kick return. And people in South Florida were scared to kick to him. Obviously, they had to, and he would make, a lot of people pay, and showed that throughout the year. But one thing I do want to mention, when it comes to recruitment, Miami has an entire new defensive staff, including a new defensive back coach who was on the recruiting trail yesterday and on Wednesday too. So I feel like that's going to be something to monitor too. Miami kind of playing catch up with him getting to know Coach Heatherman and him getting to know Coach Etheridge that recently came from Houston. But a lot we talk about this in a lot of recruitments. It really does come down to the head coach and that connection that they have. And it seems like Javari Flowers is very fond of Coach Cristobal. So this is going to be one of those, late cycle recruitments that we keep a very, very close eye on. And like Steven mentioned, February is a dead period, so there's not much you can do there. So March is going to be a very, very accelerated recruitment. You usually see this happen over the course of, close to a year, and Javari's gonna have to make that decision in a month. So going to be a recruitment. We have our hands all over. Going to be giving you guys the latest news on that. But make sure to check out the article that we had published on him and get the latest on Javari Flowers, who I think can potentially be, like I said, the cherry on top for the Hurricanes 2025 class if they're able to land him. So make sure to check out that update on him and all the other updates that we'll have flowing through this morning. For Stephen Wagner, I'm Izubee Charles. Thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your day.